This week on NHRA Today. A motto makes it 4 in a row at the Mile High Nationals, while the Candy Car is crowned King of Colorado. Teammates tangle in a historic Pro Stock final, and strange occurrences surround the sportsman scene. From Sears Point International Raceway, site of the Autolite California Nationals, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and welcome to NHRA Today. You know, for most people, summer is a time for vacationing. But for the participants in the National Hot Rod Association's Winston Championship, late July and early August are a grueling, barnstorming journey across the western United States. 3 races in 3 weeks puts a great deal of stress on both equipment and personnel as they move from Colorado to California to Washington State. The midpoint of this mini tour is the Autolite California Nationals held in the Napa Valley region north of San Francisco. During the next half hour, we'll bring you a preview of this pivotal event and highlights of Round 1, the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. But first, let's take that moment to find out what's hot. A decision has finally been reached on who will be the temporary replacement driver for Gary Ormsby. Getting the nod is 240 Gordy Bonnet.
It's just an absolute thrill just to even be part of this deal.
Bonnet certainly has the credentials for the temporary assignment. In fact, he reached the Final Four here at Sears Point just 2 years ago.
It's an absolute honor to be chosen for the seat of the Castro dragster. All our thoughts are with Gary and him getting back in the seat, but until he is, I'm going to do my level best to try to fill his shoes.
For anyone who would like to convey their best wishes to Gary Ormsby during his medical treatment, here's the address. Ormsby Racing, 800 Nevada Street, Auburn, California, 95603. And that's what's hot. Only 7 days have elapsed since we were in Colorado for the first race of NHRA's summer sojourn to the West. It was quite an event, highlighted by a most unusual Pro Stock final. Here's Dave McClellan with all the details.
The 5-speed transmissions were out in force at the 13th annual Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals, as all but one car in the top half of the field had added a gear. That lone exception was Darrell Alderman's Dodge, which had qualified second. The Winston points leader moved easily into the second round, where he met up with a 5-speed equipped Pontiac of Jim Yates. The Fram Bendix entry had qualified 7th, but against Alderman, not even that extra gear and a better reaction time could hold off the far lane charge of the dynamic Dodge. Meeting Alderman in the Final Four would be the winner of a clash of cutlasses, driven by Larry Morgan and Scott Jeffreyon. 1 year ago, Morgan had taken his Castrol Olds to victory at this event, but his hopes for a repeat title came to an end when the WJ Enterprises machine took a start-to-finish victory. The Final Four was another chapter in the classic season-long struggle between Oldsmobile and Dodge, but the outcome was really determined at the start when Alderman faltered and cut a poor reaction time.
I just shorted out at the starting line. When I put my stage light on, I brought the engine up, and I just didn't have enough foot pressure on the clutch. It come up a little bit on me, and the car moved. And when I went back with the pedal, well, the light was on and Scott was gone. The altitude's supposed to affect the cars, not the drivers.
The Mile High Air certainly agreed with Warren Johnson, who qualified his AC Delco Oldsmobile in the #1 slot. The professor of Pro Stock then moved easily through the first 2 rounds of competition and into the Final Four, where he would face the winner of the Ford versus Chevy battle between Bob Glidden and Joe Lapone. The Summit Racing Beretta had qualified 5th, 1 place behind the 10-time Winston champion, but at the green, a tardy launch in the near lane put Joe too far behind to catch up, despite running a virtually identical elapsed time to that turned in by the Motorcraft Ford Probe. The Final Four pairing would once again be a meeting of legends, with Johnson having lane choice. And as the 2 cars thundered down track and slammed through their 5-speed gearboxes, it was the Oldsmobile in the near lane emerging with a victory to set up an historic final round. The last time Pro Stock teammates met in the final round of a national event was at the 1971 Super Nationals at Ontario, California, when Ronnie Sox defeated Herb McCandless. And as the lights blinked at Vandermeer Speedway last Sunday, it was Scott Jeffrey on in the far lane with the early lead. But then Warren poured it on during the charge to the finish line to take his second Mile High Nationals crown. For the first time in 20 years, we've had a team making up both competitors in the final round.
Well, I think that's the gratifying part of this race for me, is a standpoint from a team manager standpoint, and from selecting the right people to get both of those cars in the final. That's the gratifying part of it for me.
The victory by Warren Johnson has moved him a bit closer to Darrell Alderman, but Darrell still has a big lead in the Winston points chase. Bob Glidden is third, Scott Jeffrey on fourth, and Jerry Ekman is number 5.
It was probably just a matter of time before the Johnson juggernaut squared off in a Pro Stock final. They have been contenders all season long. But it's not easy in the highly competitive world of Pro Stock to predict who has a shot at success. Case in point, right here in 1988, the finalists were 2 drivers who usually struggle just to qualify.
The California Nationals was the first race where we had enough horsepower to qualify. That was the first year we were together with Larry Morgan. We've been struggling to that point, not qualifying. We put a motor in that came on an airplane, and all of a sudden we went from not qualifying to being in the finals against Harry Scribner.
The 2 alcohol cars that ran just before we did oiled the lane, which was a good lane. So it was kind of a toss-up to which lane we wanted to take.
The finals were, it was pretty neat. Harry Scribner hadn't been doing that well, and we had neither. It was probably 2 lame ducks that were probably Las Vegas wouldn't have had a bet on either one of us.
About the middle of the track, Don was about at the back of the car, and he started to pull around me because the car started getting loose. So I just started shifting the levers to make the car hook up, and then just pulled us through ahead.
Who knows? Maybe for Harry Scribner, lightning will strike twice in the same place. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll have good news about a legendary lady, and we'll show you who scaled the summit of Thunder Mountain.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Welcome back to NHRA Today, where the most welcome sight at the Autolite California Nationals is the return of Shirley Muldowney. And Shirley, there's a lot to be happy about. Your recent surgery, a complete success, and your sponsor quest as well.
We're pretty excited about our new sponsor. The Petromali people called us early in the year, and we kind of negotiated and talked, moved things around a little bit, and all of a sudden they decided to step up and help us on 2 races this year and get us ready for 92 and 93.
So we'll see you all next year, all the following year, and maybe forever.
Yes, you will. We're gonna chase the World Championship.
That means she'll be in Denver in 92. Dave McClellan was there just last weekend. Here's the Top Fuel report.
One driver taking part in the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals who experienced a Rocky Mountain high was Lori Johns. Because in Friday night qualifying, Lori rode her Jolly Rancher Candy's Top Fueler to the first 4-second run in the history of the event. In fact, her 4.99-second elapsed time in the thin Colorado air is equivalent to a stunning 484 at sea level. Lori's excitement with her performance carried over into eliminations until the second round when she squared off against Tommy Johnson Jr. As the lights turned green, the young Iowa driver in the far lane took a major lead that held up as the cars streaked across the finish line. That hole shot victory by independent racer Tommy Johnson Jr. over low qualifier Lori Johns was the picture of consistency. The time matched exactly his qualifying effort. TJ Jr.'s opponent in the Final Four would be the winner of the race between veteran Gene Snow and Winston points leader Don Prudhomme. The 2 cars left the line as one, but just after the start, smoke billowed from Snow's Mopar-backed machine, and Prudhomme powered to a lane choice securing win. In the Final Four, Johnson in the far lane continued his streak of demon reaction times, getting out ahead of the Skoal Bandit Special, but just as Prudhomme seemed to close the gap, a blower belt came off, and Johnson was in his first professional final. The other side of eliminations featured a second-round pairing between the Budweiser King of Kenny Bernstein and the Super Shops entry of Eddie Hill. In the Battle of Texans, Bernstein won reaction time bragging rights, but when the cars reached the finish line, Hill had motored past for the victory.
That red car was way out there. It looked like he had me by daylight. And when that thing started disappearing and dropped out of sight, you got no idea how good that felt. That's been a long time coming since we've had anything that satisfying. That was great.
Eddie's opponent in the Final Four would be the winner of the meeting between Joe Amato and Frank Hawley, with the Coors Light special holding lane choice. Frank selected the near side, but at the green, it was Winston champion Amato taking an early lead that lasted for the entire quarter mile. In the Final Four, Hill deep staged and had the better reaction time, but then he lost traction and could only watch as Amato's Valvoline machine pulled away to take the win light. The finals were a battle between a youngster in pursuit of his first Top Fuel victory against a man who had won this event for the last 3 years, and DJ Jr. responded with a brilliant reaction time in the near lane. But as the cars roared down track, Amato pulled ahead to conquer Colorado one more time.
I guess we're king of the hill one more time with our Team Valvoline Top Fuel Dragster. What a pleasure to come up here and win 4 times like that. Plus, we made a big move in the World Championship points.
Joe, you moved into second place, as you said, behind Prudhomme. Kenny Bernstein dropped down to third. Fourth is Frank Hawley. Fifth is Laurie Johns.
Even though Kenny Bernstein lost to Eddie Hill last weekend in the second round, he was still able to find some pleasure in Colorado, courtesy of one trick-looking motorcycle.
Get your motor running. Head out on the highway.
That's a Harley-Davidson 1990 model. It's a Heritage Custom. And we've taken and prettied it up a little bit. Nice California paint job on it and a whole lot of chrome put on it. And it's just a lot of fun to cruise around on. It kind of gives me a little relief from the day-to-day routines of doing this business. I have a lot of friends in Aspen, Colorado, and actually I keep the bike in Aspen, Colorado. And we get up here a couple of 3 weeks in the summer, and I ride with all my buddies up there, and we just kind of cruise around and have a good time up in the mountains. But I guess it's like guys playing golf. You know, once they get out there, they don't think about business. Well, this is kind of my release. I kind of go out there and have some fun and don't think about business.
Kenny obviously gets a lot of pleasure out of that particular recreation. Now, if drag racing is becoming your recreation, one of the best ways to enhance your enjoyment is to join NHRA. You'll receive a variety of items, plus a subscription to National Dragster. And if you call the number on your screen, you'll also get a bonus, a free copy of the Diamond P Video Drag Racing 90. So make that call, and then plan on attending the 4th annual Jolly Rancher Candy's Northwest Nationals next week near Seattle, Washington. Welcome back to the Autolite California Nationals. You know, one thing you can always count on in this 3-race trek to the West is strong performances from sportsman racers. But as Bob Fry reports, last weekend at Denver, well, it was a mixture of the quick with the quirky.
Submitted for your approval, a dragster driver named Joe Amato, competing at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Somewhere between the darkness and the daylight, things are not what they appear. The thin air of Denver plays tricks on your mind, and you find yourself in Supercomp, racing in the Mile High Zone.
It happens quite often, more than what you would think it does. As a matter of fact, I had a cousin call me this morning and tell me, you know, we're really hearing your name on the radio a lot and on TV a lot, and they're thinking, naturally, that I am the other Joe Amato. When my son was in high school, he had a couple of kids in high school believing for about a year and a half that I was the Top Fuel Joe Amato.
Unlike that Pro Joe, the Joe Amato hit the red light zone and faded into the thin Rocky Mountain air, never to be seen again at this event. But wait, there's more. Identities get confused in Top Alcohol Funny Car, where Vern Motes and Ray Motes both marched into the Mile High Zone unrelated. But they both left, ironically, the same way, at the hand of one Chuck Cheeseman. For Ray Motes, his machine never made a move.
Pulling on into the line there, it seemed to be okay, but then the engine just died without any forewarning or anything.
Eyes have also been known to play tricks in the high country skies. What appears tantalizingly familiar is uncovered to reveal a newcomer with a striking resemblance to a veteran. But in the first round of Top Alcohol Dragster, Shelley Anderson found that glitches and gremlins occupied the darker reaches of the Mile High Zone.
It was really strange because this is my first national event to have this many problems, but the last 3 runs we had electrical problems. It was only running on 6 cylinders. It was just a weird situation that we hope doesn't happen again.
As Shelley Anderson learned, bizarre twists of fate and fortune create the jagged boundary between success and failure. And here are those who navigated that path to victory at Vandermeer Speedway.
In the thin air of Denver, leave nothing to chance, and don't trust your senses. This is where identity and illusion come together in the Mile High Zone.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
Pat Austin's win at the Mile High Nationals clinched the Winston Top Alcohol Funny Car Championship for the Tacoma Top Gun for the 2nd year in a row. But Pat, there's still plenty of challenges left.
Yeah, there's still 8 races left for the year, and we're going to do our best to win all those races. And we got a new motor that we're coming out with. It's an Oldsmobile Hemi motor that's going to be a big challenge for us to make something work better than what we got right now, and that's what we're looking forward to doing.
Welcome back to NHRA Today. There's an awful lot of tension in the funny car pits here at the Autolite California Nationals because the Winston Championship has turned into a torrid 3-way battle for the crown. Now, last weekend's action in Denver definitely helped turn the heat on high.
The antics of the funny car brigade at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals featured uncontrolled excitement. Take, for example, this second-round pairing of Richard Hartman and Al Hoffman. As the 2 floppers left the line with virtually identical reaction times, Hartman's Raybestos Cutlass left the groove and slapped the far lane wall. It was Hartman's second concrete kiss in as many weeks.
We have a new computer on the car, and that was the first time we got a graph out of it, and it showed us exactly what it did, and it's just spinning the tires right off the line, and it pulls the engine down and gets real violent on us.
Richard's departure allowed Al Hoffman's Blower Drive Services Ford Probe to advance to the Final 4, where he did battle with Ed McCulloch. The Otter Pops Oldsmobile had turned in its best qualifying performance of the season, taking the #1 spot and setting a new track record. And against Hoffman, the ace took an immediate lead in the far lane and parlayed it into a victory and a spot in the championship round for the 2nd year in a row. The other side of the eliminations featured a second-round battle between a pair of father-son racing teams when Mike Dunn's Daytona, crew-chiefed by his dad Jim Dunn, squared off against the father-son combination of Summer Nationals victor Dell and Chuck Worsham. The Snickers Dodge Daytona had set the quickest time of the first round, and against Worsham, the Spring Nationals winner took command right from the start and moved easily into the Final 4. Beating Dunn in that race would be either John Force or Whit Bazemore, who had impressed by qualifying 7th in the Permatex Probe. In a surprisingly close race, Bazemore took a lengthy initial lead, but by mid-track, the Castrol Cutlass had motored on by and into the Final 4 matchup with Dunn. That race was a crucial battle between 2 of the championship contenders, and Force tried everything in his bag of tricks, including deep staging to take the win. But Mike countered with another in a series of low elapsed times as he sent the Winston points leader packing. In the championship round, McCulloch knew that if he wanted to repeat as the event champion, he would need a quick reaction time to overcome Dunn's performance advantage. But as the lights blinked down, the ace left the line a fraction of a second too soon and handed the victory to the Circle A Racing Daytona.
My dad had a good handle on it. We ran 540s all day, and I was actually driving pretty good. I didn't realize I won that last race. I didn't see the red light, and I was a little upset until I seen the cameras come over, and then I figured he must have red light because I knew he was out there pretty good on me.
Well, your victory moved you back into 2nd in the Winston points chase right behind John Force. Jim White drops to 3rd, Mark Oswald 4th, and Ed McCulloch is now number 5.
As Richard Hartman mentioned, their new computer has helped identify a tricky traction problem. And of course, most teams are using rather sophisticated electronics for the car's setup. But they also use a very simple method, one that involves, of all things, white shoe polish. Here's Big Daddy Don Garlitz for the explanation.
I'm sure you've all seen these strange marks on these tires and wondered why the crews painted them on there. Well, this mark is for slippage. If this mark passes the pavement too fast, the tire is slipping. This would occur long before you would see smoke. The white ring around the tire, that shows distortion. The little mark right here would show, does the tire slip on the rim? Any of those conditions are not good. This is a method that the crew has of keeping up with it. Also, these runs are videotaped. They can come back to the trailer when the run is over, run it in slow motion, and really get a true picture of just what are these tires doing during the run.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's run of NHRA Today. But join us in just 1 week for highlights of the Autolite California Nationals. For Dave McClellan, Bob Fry, and Don Garlitz, I'm Steve Evans.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the special offer from Diamond P.
For years, you've all loved Diamond P Sports Home Video, Decade of Thrills, the ultimate drag racing experience. Well, I've got some great news. Don Perdome and I are back with the all-new 90-minute Decade 2, the thunder of the 80s. Eddie Hill cracks the fours, then flies away. Connie Colletta marches past 290. Ed McCullough and John Collins will never forget the Cajun Nationals of 84, nor Kenny Bernstein, Maple Grove, PA, 87. Glidden won his 50th and his 75th in the same decade. It's all in Decade of Thrills, too. To get your copy, send $24.95 to the address on your screen, or better yet, call 1-800-767-1600. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. Call now, 1-800-767-1600.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.